on our holding environment for this week. So I'll be sharing some words about that before we meditate this morning. So if you like, you can put it on speaker view or leave it in gallery view. And let me just get myself set up here. Right. And Fabiola, if you could hit record, that would be lovely.
Yes, it's recording.
Thank you so much. So when we think about cultivating our holding environment, we often focus on, and appropriately so, on softening, on feathering our nest, creating a gentle, comforting environment. And we certainly want to create this kind of welcoming space. As Bill and Susan would say, we want to cultivate a space where we want to come to, where we want to spend time, where we want to be. And we may have all have this felt experience when we return home from a trip or a vacation or even a day's work, and it just feels so good to come home. And I recently experienced this when I was away for several days. And when I settled into bed the evening of my return, I experienced this incredible sense of gladness and gratitude at being home in my own bed, my kitten snuggled around me. I was joyful to be back home with this warmth suffusing my body and my mind and my heart. Deeply grateful that not only did I have a home to come to, but a home where I wanted to return to. A home that was safe and sturdy, as well as warm and comforting to have, when so many these days don't have that. So, along with creating a soft and gentle holding environment, especially in these really difficult times, we may be more aware of the need to cultivate a strong as well as a soft and gentle holding environment, this strong refuge within ourselves. And when we think about it, this is how we start our practice, with grounding and steadiness, a stable posture that provides us with comfort as well as strength. And these are the Buddha's instructions. We go to a forest or a secluded place and sit down at the foot of a tree, cross-legged in a stable position, with spine strong and erect, and set mindfulness to the fore. We start with grounding. And this is what Susan reminds us in her mantra: ground, breathe, calm, settle, soothe. We connect not only with our foundation in the grounding process, but with the foundation of the earth, of Mother Earth and all of its strength, resilience, tenacity, stability, setting up a firm and strong base. And from that, we rise up strongly, spine erect, and create a space in which we can allow breathing to flow and calmness and softening to develop, and the heart mind to open up so that the strength of mindfulness can come to the front of our awareness. The balance of strength and gentleness requires wisdom, as is stated in the following poem. Wisdom was listening in one day. She had nothing else to do. As strength and gentleness were debating which was the greater of the two. I'm the greater one, said strength. I'm a mountain. I'm a tree. Nothing on this planet is more powerful than me. Silly strength, you flatter yourself, said gentleness. You're not as important as you think. For gentle is the air we breathe and the water that we drink. I believe, wisdom interrupted, you're both looking at this wrong. For it often takes strength to be gentle and a gentleness to be strong. You can debate who's greater until the end of time, and no solution will you derive. For you're strongest when you act together. You need each other to survive. And that's by Jim Yearman. Focusing on softening and gentleness rather than strength makes sense from the perspective of counteracting so much of our cultural conditioning around what it means to be strong. If we focused on strength from the get-go, we might get lost in our conditioned notion of what strength is, seeing it as hard, unyielding, unfeeling, uncaring, and build a hard and rigid structure, a fortress of steel and concrete. In the words of Simon and Garfunkel, I'm a rock, I'm an island, I've built walls, a fortress steep and mighty that none may penetrate. Especially with so much pain and suffering in the world around us, it's tempting, based on our conditioning, to create emotional armor, to want to protect our hearts, to armor up around our hearts so nobody can get at them, nobody can touch them, nobody can harm them, building walls around ourselves, becoming detached and disconnected. And the safer we want to be and the more vulnerable we feel, the more we're tempted to armor up. But this is the process of aversion, the understandable but not beneficial proclivity to want to push any pain out. We can, as I certainly did for many years, see strength as the capacity to not feel rather than the capacity for caring, compassionate relationship to my pain. I used to, as an adolescent and younger adult, whenever I was hurt, just walk around singing the Simon and Garfunkel song in my head, feeling powerful. I'm a rock, I'm in an island. Of course, that's strong. And I didn't see how that was perpetuating my suffering and my pain, that second arrow. But practicing the Eightfold Path, the paramitas, the Brahma Viharas, the factors of awakening, these are our strength workouts. We practice cultivating and understanding each aspect of our practice more deeply, doing many reps, since, as Bill says, we're all slow learners. We're building up our practice muscles. This is our strength training workout. We've been learning new moves, new ways of seeing more clearly and understanding our experience, strengthening our capacity to notice, explore, be with, and lean into our experience, whether delightful or painful. As Thanissaro Bhikkhu also reminds us, so even though you may feel scrawny when everyone around you seems bigger and stronger, remember you're not here to compete. Only by exercising what little concentration or metta or wisdom or mindfulness you have will you make it solid and steady. So after we complete these workouts, as we have just done with our months on the 7 factors of awakening, mindfulness, investigation, energy, joy, calm, concentration, equanimity, Our heart mind needs time to take a pause, to let these new learnings and moves integrate into our being, into our holding environments, to let our muscles rest so that they can remain strong and consolidate their gains. And I've really come to savor the time we spend returning to focusing on our holding environment in between our workouts, these new learnings. But I must confess, this hasn't always been so. This hasn't always been my attitude about coming back to the holding environment. When we'd initially return to our holding environment, I'd feel my impatience rising up, wanting to get on to something new, something juicier, something more challenging, not just go back to what I thought I already knew and understood. Fortunately, I was able to recognize and notice my silliness, my impatience with a bit of a chuckle and some good humor, and be more curious about what I could gain from revisiting my holding environment. By coming back to this space to appreciate where we are and to appreciate how these new learnings are fitting in or not. Are they settling in calmly, filling a gap I hadn't noticed? Do I need to make more space for new acquisitions? Maybe a new awareness has been unsettling or triggered some doubt or uncertainty. Recently, as I've been focusing more on cultivating concentration, my first realization was that maybe you're not as good at this concentrating thing as you thought you were. I realized I needed to shore up my holding environment where this awareness had created a bit of a rattle and instability. First, I had to bring in some kindness and compassion to hold my wobble and my doubt. Giving ourselves this time to, as Bill and Susan say, come in for a soft landing, gives us the opportunity to see where new learnings and skills fit and make room for them. I think we need time to settle and stabilize and bring together, as our poem suggests, our strength, gentleness, and wisdom. This is why it's so important, as Susan would say, to notice and make much of the fruits of our practice, each new learning, to nurture these fragile sprouts, to notice and cultivate the fragile growing edges of strength and gentleness, and savor being held in the strong and gentle arms of our holding environments as we do so. So thank you for your very kind attention, and let's practice this. Let's take some time to be held in strong and gentle arms. First, grounding in our bodies, noticing what's going on here. How's it doing in there, kiddo? My sweetheart, my darling. What could this body use in the next several minutes? A bit of a stretch, a bit of a twist, some unbinding, some loosening, some rearranging to ground with a bit more stability. Creating a bit of space to feel the breathing that's already happening. And invite the heart mind in with a big welcome, with open arms, with strong arms, gentle and kindness, friendliness. creating a space where the heart mind wants to be, to come in for that gentle landing in a place of strength and ease and comfort. And perhaps noticing how breathing arrives in this moment, in this place, ventilating and helping to open up our holding space. Breathing in spaciousness and breathing out the place for settling, letting all the busyness, awarenesses to come in, settling in their own time. Letting the heart and mind open in their own time. In their own way. Savoring whatever bits of comfort and ease can come into this moment. strong and gentle, soft and steady. Breathing in, I smile to my holding environment. Breathing out, I smile to our Sangha holding environment. Breathing in, grateful for my holding environment, its strength and gentleness. Breathing out, grateful for the strength and kindness of our Sangha. Well, thank you so much. Let me do our ritual unmuting so we can say our goodbyes and well wishes. All right, that should